Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Gyan Sampada. In our previous classes we discussed about ferromagnetic domains, closure domains as well as the Bloch wall. And today we are going to start with a new concept where we will be discussing about the spin waves. So what actually are spin waves, how these are generated, what are the characteristic properties of these, and also the dispersion relation of spin waves. So let's start our today's class on spin waves. Whenever we start studying some new things, it becomes easier to understand when we link the things with the previous knowledge. In the same manner, if we need to study about spin waves, the analogous term what we can see is the lattice waves. And these lattice waves are nothing but the elastic waves which are due to the lattice vibrations, and spin waves are having similar properties as that of lattice waves. So how these spin waves are generated? It is said that these spin waves generate due to the exchange forces which we have already discussed. So if we compare with the lattice waves, we know that lattice waves are generated due to the elastic forces, and here it is exchange force. And even it can be said that a spin wave is a collective motion of magnetic moment in magnetically ordered material. So magnetically ordered material means a ferromagnetic material where we observe parallel orientation of spins. And due to the external disturbance, these magnetic moments undergo some motion which gives rise to the spin waves. So if we look at the diagram, we know that ferromagnetic materials are spontaneously magnetized, which means even in the absence of external magnetic field, there exists some amount of magnetization within the material. So along positive y-axis we can observe the magnetization is present, and if we apply some alternating field, then due to that alternating field, the magnetic moment or the magnetization is going to start precessing. So it is set into a motion, and as such if you consider here it is only just a single spin, but in the whole ferromagnetic material there are a number of spins, and precision of this single moment is going to influence the neighboring moments present in the ferromagnetic crystal. So we say that it is a collective motion of a magnetic moment, and if we observe clearly here, easily we can observe that there is a kind of wave formation, and this wave comprising of the spins within the ferromagnetic material is due to the external field whichever is applied. That's why we call it as a spin wave. So we can also call it a wave of quantized energy that is going to propagate through a substance as a result of magnetic field shifting within an atom in response to an outside stimulus. So outside stimulus is nothing but a alternating field whichever you are going to apply. So it may be an external magnetic field or even electromagnetic field. So this is how spin waves can be visualized, and the quantization of spin waves gives us magnons. So if you compare with the lattice waves, their quantized elastic wave gives us phonons, and here quantized spin waves give us magnons. So these magnons we can say it as a collective excitations of electron spin structure in a crystal lattice, and mainly the crystal should be magnetic in nature, especially where ordered state is observed, that is ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic and also ferrimagnetic substances. So before moving to dispersion relation, let us understand in detail what are these magnons. As such, these are the quasi-particles. So what actually is a quasi-particle? In general, quasi means false, but these quasi-particles will have its own momentum within the crystal. So the only difference between a particle and a quasi-particle is that normally a particle can be isolated, means a single particle can be separated like electron, proton or a neutron. But A quasi-particle can only exist when interaction is taking place. That is, inside the interacting many particle systems, then only a quasi-particle exists. It is something like a collective excitations. But still there is a small difference between the collective excitations and quasi-particles, but these are again a quantum of energy in the crystal lattice, which is having its own position, momentum due to the interaction. So magnon is such a quasi-particle in ferromagnetic crystals, and it can be defined as the collective excitations of electron spin structure in crystal lattice. And for collective excitations, we observed in the last slide, we need some external agent, even it may be some thermal agitation. So quantized spin waves are termed as magnons, and they obey boson behavior, that is Bose-Einstein statistics is valid for magnons similar to that of phonons. So if we consider different properties, then these magnons carry a fixed amount of energy as well as the lattice momentum, and the spin is equals to 1. So as spin is integer, we can say that it is a boson particle, because for boson we say that the particles will have integral spins, but in case of fermions the particles will have half integral spins. So as magnon is having spin equals to 1, it is said to be a boson. But what about the history of magnon? The concept of magnon was first introduced in the year 1930 by Felix Bloch, and it was only introduced to explain the reduction of spontaneous magnetization in a ferromagnet. We know that as the temperature goes on increasing, spontaneous magnetization in ferromagnetic material goes on decreasing, and Felix Bloch used the concept of magnons in order to explain the decrease in the spontaneous magnetization as a function of temperature. So it is said that at absolute zero, ferromagnetic material reach a state of lowest energy. That is, at T is equals to 0 Kelvin, the ferromagnetic material is in its ground state, and in ground state we know that the atomic spins or the magnetic moments point in the same direction, so they are parallel to each other. Totally the system is ordered. But as the temperature goes on increasing, more and more spins will start deviating randomly from their parallel alignment, and because of this randomness in the orientation of the spins, the internal energy of the system goes on increasing. And as the internal energy goes on increasing, we observe that there is a reduction in net spontaneous magnetization, because we have already seen as the temperature increases means there is some external stimulus, and in that case the spins which are oriented parallel to each other, they will start to precess with respect to the field direction, which is going to interact with the neighboring spins, finally giving rise to a spin wave. So here because of this, net spontaneous magnetization goes on decreasing, because spontaneous magnetization is related to parallel orientation of spins, and here we observe the deviation from parallel orientation of spins, and thus gives rise to magnons. So magnon is created when temperature is increased, and more creation of magnons is going to reduce the spontaneous magnetization. So each magnon is going to reduce the total spin along the direction of magnetization by 1 unit of H cross, whereas the magnetization by gamma H cross. Total spin will be reduced by H cross units and magnetization will be reduced by gamma H cross, where this gamma is called as the gyromagnetic ratio. Gyromagnetic ratio is the ratio of magnetic moment to the angular momentum. So that is given by gamma. So the concept of magnons was introduced in 1930 by Felix Bloch, but main observation or experimental detection of magnons was done in the year 1957 by Bertram Brockhaus in the experiment of inelastic neutron scattering in a ferrite. And these magnons, as they are related to the ordered state of magnetic material and their deviation, these can be detected in ferromagnetic materials, ferrimagnetic as well as antiferromagnetic materials. So if we need to create some number of magnons, the best method is thermal agitation. If the temperature goes on increasing, the spins which are parallelly oriented, they deviate randomly, and each deviation is going to create a magnon. So till here we understood and visualized what actually is a spin wave and what are magnons. So now let us move on to the dispersion relation for spin waves. So what actually is a dispersion relation? In general, we can just say it is a relation between omega and q. Omega is the angular frequency and q is the wave vector. So the relation which gives the link between these two parameters is called as dispersion relation. And for the spin waves, let us find out what is the expression for it. If you consider the ground state of a simple ferromagnetic material, then all the spins are parallel, and that is ordered state is observed, and in such case magnons do not exist, because only when these parallel orientation is disturbed, then only magnon will be created due to that interaction. So in ground state there is no magnon present. As we know, spin waves are due to the exchange forces. We can consider the exchange energy between the two spins. So exchange energy equation we know, and corresponding to two neighboring spin we will consider it as E exchange 1, which will be equal to minus 2j dash s square cos theta, because si dot sj will be there. So s square cos theta, where j dash is exchange integral, s is the magnitude of spin, and theta is the angle between two neighboring spins. Then considering the exchange energy corresponding to the ground state of the ferromagnetic material, then exchange energy 2 will be equal to minus 2j dash s square, because in the ground state of the material all the spins are parallel to each other, which means theta is equals to 0 degree, means cos theta will be equal to 1. And as spin waves involve the collective excitations, we will just consider the relative energy, which means the increase in the energy above the ground state, which is derived when we take the difference between the two energies. So delta E exchange will be equal to E exchange 1 minus E exchange 2. So substituting the values from above, we can observe that 2j dash s square is common, and within the brackets 1 minus cos theta will be remaining, and from the standard equation we know 1 minus cos theta is 2 sin square theta by 2, on solving which we get relative energy delta E exchange is equals to 4j dash s square sin square theta by 2. But main thing here is we need a dispersion relation, which means the relation between omega and q. But here in this expression we are not having both the terms. Thus, now we need to consider some expressions where we can get or relate energy or theta with respect to the wave vector and omega. And we know that energy is related to frequency, where frequency of oscillator can be written as delta E by h cross, because in general we know for a wave packet energy E is equals to h cross omega. So omega can be written as delta E by h cross. Substituting the value of delta E, we get omega is equals to 4j dash s square sin square theta by 2 divided by h cross. Now we are having omega, and we need an equation where q is going to be coming into picture. So for that, if we consider a lattice, then theta can be given as a by lambda into 2 pi, where a is the lattice constant or interatomic distance. So this is a standard equation. And we know that wave vector is inverse of wavelength. So q, which is a wave vector, can be written as 2 pi by lambda. And now instead of theta we can put the value with respect to q. So theta will be equal to 2 pi a by lambda. So lambda can be substituted as 2 pi by q. So 2 pi will get cancelled and theta will be equal to a into q. So when we substitute back in the above equation, we get omega is equals to 4j dash s square by h cross into sine square of aq by 2. And this is the dispersion relation for spin waves or the magnons in ferromagnetism, which relates omega with respect to q. So based on the equation we can plot a graph where along y-axis we have omega and along x-axis we have wave vector. So if we look at this equation we can say that when q is equals to 0, aq by 2 is 0, sine 0 is 0, so omega is going to be equal to 0. So the curve starts from origin. Then what might be the maximum range? We can say that these all are constants. Only variable is the wave vector, which is having a sine function, and sine function has a maximum value of 1. So sine square, 1 square will be equal to 1 itself. So the maximum value for omega will be for the case when the sine term becomes equals to 1. And we know that sine pi by 2 is equals to 1, and if that has to happen means q has to be equal to pi by a. So maximum frequency will be corresponding to the wave vector equal to pi by a. So pi by a is like a zone boundary if you consider the Brillouin zone scheme. And we know that this equation is not an equation of a straight line. It is having a sine function. So when we plot a graph, we can observe the curve something like this, which starts from 0, increases like a sine wave and saturates or becomes maximum at pi by a with omega max is equals to 4j dash s square by h cross. That is the maximum value of angular frequency possible. So the spins support waves whose frequency ranges from 0 to maximum value of 4j dash s square by h cross for q is equals to pi by a. So omega max is the upper cutoff frequency above which the wave is going to get scattered, and thus there will not be any propagation of wave above omega max. So this is how we interpret the equation with respect to the graph. Then coming to the special case where we will consider for a longer wavelength limit. Longer wavelength limit means lambda is going to be very much greater than 1, and we know that lambda and q are related to each other but inversely. So longer wavelength means lambda is very much greater than 1, so q will be very much less than 1. So if we multiply q with a is the interatomic distance, again it is of the range of angstrom. So a into q is again very much less than 1. So in that case sine square qa by 2 will be approximately equal to aq by 2 whole square. So for a longer wavelength region, when theta is very small, sin theta tends to theta. So sin square theta will be tending to theta square itself. So when we substitute that value in the above equation, we get omega is equals to 4j dash s square by h cross as it is. Instead of sin square aq by 2, we will put a square q square by 4. So here all the terms are constants except q. So we say that omega is directly proportional to q square. That is, quadratic dependence is observed. And if you link it with the phonon concept, for phonon we have omega is equals to Vs into q. That is, omega is directly proportional to q for phonons But for magnons, omega is directly proportional to q square. There the nature is linear, here nature is quadratic. So this is a quantum mechanical approach for dispersion relation of magnons. And in our next class we will be discussing about classical derivation of magnon dispersion relation and also understand some of the conclusions or simple formulae which are very helpful. So till then, stay tuned, study well, and thank you for watching.